Hi, this is Erica, and I'm the founder of Perfect Legal Video. I am so excited to have with us today Attorney Nicole Reeves Lavallee. She has a family and real estate law firm in the Worcester, Massachusetts area, and she is fantastic with coming to us every week with great advice that saves us tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars if you follow it. And so today we're going to talk about a very important topic that is difficult because when you are in family court, it is, I think, some of the most highly contested arguments out there. People get fired up and lose sleep and have health issues because of the constant anger that they feel toward whatever's happening to them in family court. So thank you so much for coming. We're talking about maintaining control today. Is that right, Nicole?
It is. I'm hoping these tidbits will help you guys to think about what's going on. And even though we're talking about in a family law setting, it really applies to anywhere.
Right. So, and I always ask you, like, I don't know how you do this type of law and maintain control yourself, but it's not your personal issue. So you're able to really look in from the outside and give calm, cool, collected, strategic advice.
I hope so.
I found that to be true. All right. So I'm sure that everybody can relate to this, that their ex knows how to push their buttons. And I mean, what do you do? What steps can be taken in dealing with your ex when they know how to push your buttons and they keep doing it and it's affecting your life and maybe your parenting?
It definitely is. And they're doing it intentionally and they're doing it to get a rise out of you and they're doing it to get the reaction because they're going to use all of that when they go into court because you're just a horrible human being, right? They've already set that expectation. So you really have to not let it get to you. And how do we do that, right? There's lots of ways. There's lots of ways that are really simple. But you really got to practice them. You've got to practice. It's, they're sitting there screaming at you and calling your names, and you're just going, breathe. And sometimes it's just that simple. And if you do that, if you really, pretend you're at a doctor's office and he goes, inhale, exhale. And if you do that, you're calming yourself down. So regardless of what's going on over there, you're focusing on your breathing. That's one really simple way to do it. Another way is, learning meditation techniques, which again is part of breathing, but simple techniques. You do this, forefinger and your thumb. Calm, relaxed, confident. If you're saying those to yourself, you're going to start breathing. You're going to start focusing. Calm, relaxed, confident. Calm, relaxed. And if you're doing that, you're being in control. You're not letting it get to you. Simple other techniques, just counting to 10. Again, counting in your head, not out loud, because that's just going to aggravate the situation, but counting in your head, because that also gets you to go, I'm focusing on these numbers. I'm not focusing on you. And obviously the most easy one to do is focus on your child. Your child is in this situation usually when they're berating you and harassing you and doing all this crap. You have a child right there that's listening to all this. You don't want your child to listen to this. You don't want to see a reaction. You don't want to get the police involved. You don't want to have the courts being involved. You don't want DCF involved. So you focus on your child. Come here, Sally. Let me get you in and out of the car. Let me make sure your jacket is buttoned. Let me, make sure you have your backpack. Oh, wait, you gotta make sure the diaper bag has everything in it and your toys and your blankie. Focus on what you're doing with that child. That again is going to distract you from what your ex is doing and trying to be a bug in your ear. So those are really simple techniques that a lot of times really does calm down a situation. And when your ex starts seeing that he's not getting to you or she's not getting to you, they're going to move on to something else.
I mean, that is really interesting. And I think that's great. I don't think enough people do that deep breathing and calming type of techniques. And, it's something that people swear by, the ones that it really works for. So definitely try that out. Let's talk about email and texting. And we've talked about in the past about how texting can get out of hand. It's the worst possible way to do any kind of communication. because people can't really tell your true feelings. It can come across completely different in writing as if you were speaking to them. And I'm just going to say that when I was single, I went on a date with somebody who told me that their ex had blocked them from their phone, and he was able to email, and he just had to be expected to be at his pickup and drop off place and time. And number one, I found that very interesting. And I did not go on another date with that person, but wondered, what did he do to get it to that level? Do you see that sometimes with the emails and the texts?
I do. And I think usually when it's that extreme, we always go to the Our Family Wizard app, because then we can see the full context of everything, and we can see the history, and the judges can see the history. So we want to see all the ins and outs. We want to see the timestamps. And so, we definitely have evolved since that time period, that we have apps that do exactly that. But yeah, it gets very volatile very fast. And that's why, like I said, this whole session is about not letting it get to that point. Let's have a relationship. Let's act like adults. Let's be responsible parents. And that's really what we want to focus on.
What if they don't want to do the app though?
Well, sometimes they don't have a choice. You can go into court and you can say, we're going to do the Our Family Wizard. And a lot of times the judges will go, well, ma'am, sir, why don't you want to do it? And there's really not a good reason. I mean, most people are like, well, because I don't want to have to, I want to be able to talk to her when I can talk to her. Well, there's a reason why you're here. And so the judge will reiterate that to the person, go, but obviously the two of you can't communicate. That's the reason why they're asking for it. Well, no, I can communicate fine. Well, yes, but that person doesn't think that they can communicate with you fine. So I think that's a good idea. And so the judge is basically going to tell you, I'm going to order it. And sometimes it's a financial issue. Well, there are waivers. You can actually apply for a waiver to get it for free. Now, granted, some people don't qualify and you do have to pay the fees, but it's not an exorbitant amount of money. And so again, the court's going to look and go, well, okay, then, you haven't even started child support. Maybe I'll just start child support next week. Something like that, again, the court's going to go, you don't have any legitimate reason. So chances are you're going to get a court order that says you need to do Our Family Wizard. And then they'll say, well, I don't have a computer. Well, great. It's on the phone. You have a smartphone, right? Yes. So you run into these situations that their answers aren't going to be sufficient. So you can get a court order. And a lot of times what I've learned is you put in a court order that says you will use this until the child is 18 years old. It's not to make money for them. It's to make sure that when things are going well, you can veer from it. But when things are going bad, I've got the app and I've got a court order and I can make sure that you follow it. And so that's really what we want to instill in people, is you do have the power to control that situation if you have that court order.
I mean, and that's fantastic. Now, you had some great suggestions on communicating and calming yourself down. When it comes to texts and emails, though, it is so easy to fire those off. And even like I know people that just, they keep it calm, they keep it calm, they keep it calm, and that person keeps pressing the button, and then they explode. And so what should you do in regards to putting things in writing? Because those are the things that live forever.
Absolutely. And I think that's why, you have to have different techniques for that, because it is different. So the biggest one, as I'm going to say, is, either talk to this person that you don't like, to your ex, but talk to them in a way that you'd be talking to your boss. Are you going to call your boss an asshole to his face? Probably not, if you want to keep your job, right? So you have to go, okay, well, how can I be professional? How can I be business-like? Because this is really what it is. Granted, I get that your child is not a business, but your transactions with your ex needs to be exactly like that. So it needs to be more transactional. So that's why I say talk to them like you're talking to your boss. My other suggestion is, if you have a coworker at work, during their lunch break, hey, can you take a look at this and just give me your response? What would you say? How would you do it? Look at my response and tell me if it's good. Coworker is going to be more truthful with you. I love to have friends and family. Problem is with friends and family, if you've told them how much you hate them and they hate them as much as you hate them, then it's going to be counterintuitive. So if you can have a neutral third party, so if you have an acquaintance that you're not best friends with that doesn't know that your ex is a complete scumbag, then have them look at it. Is this okay? Do you think this is right? Should I tone it down? And that's why, again, Our Family Wizard is so good, because it actually has a tone meter. It tells you to tone it down. It tells you to knock it off. But when you don't have that, that's why you're relying on your coworkers and acquaintances. Or again, I'm talking to my boss in this scenario, because if I don't, I'm going to lose my job. In reality, guess what? If you continue down this track and you want to act like a jackass, you can lose your child. So that's the reason why I say treat it like a business, because it ultimately can be that devastating. If you lose your child and you lose custody or you lose parenting time, I guarantee you it's going to be 1,000% worse than you losing your job. So if you treat it more of a transactional thing, you'll be better off.
I agree. And you know what else is nice about those things is that you can use the settings to your advantage. You don't need to have your workday completely devastated by an angry text from your ex or them annoying you with something you've told them not to do. You can put that aside until you are alone, and you can react to it, maybe not when you're out having drinks with your friends, or or you're exhausted on a Friday at the end of the week. And I mean, you can really put that aside and think about it, and like you said, have impartial parties like give you some advice. And that is really good advice for them to have.
I think that's a great tip too, because again, putting aside, sometimes you're emotional and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe he's a jerk again. Why does he? If you take a breath and you put it aside and you don't look at it, then you come back to it after a while, it does give you a different perspective. So great advice.
Thank you. I think it gets easier with time too, when you first get divorced or first going through the separation, or, not everyone's even married. You might just be dealing with a breakup and you have a kid together. It's, sometimes it gets better with time, and then it gets rallied up again when they get a new partner, like something. So it's good to put some of these things in place now, because it'll serve you throughout the whole relationship, that you have to be in constant contact with them while your children are still under your care.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure that this is going to be similar, but gosh, we were talking about text has a nice impartiality when you're trying not to sound angry, I guess. What if you were talking on the phone or in person, or maybe it's over FaceTime? What would you suggest then?
I think if you're doing, any kind of phone calls, definitely go back to all the other things we talked about, the breathing techniques, the calming yourself down, the, practicing some type of meditation skills, things of that nature is definitely going to be beneficial. Focus on, a lot of times you'll focus on like the stupid thing in the wall, like that little dot on the wall is really aggravating me. So I'm just going to listen to him yell at me. I'm not going to do anything. And oh, yeah, okay, well, I'll get back to you later. And you do something like that. I'm looking at this picture over here. I could care less about what the hell you're saying. I might not even be listening to you, but again, he's not getting a rise out of you. So it tones it down. It calms it down when you're doing that. We always focus on that one thing in the doctor's office when you don't really want to be there. That's kind of what you're doing when you're on a phone call, is you focus on, oh, there's a chip in the wall over there, or look at that. I mean, you can focus on anything because they can't see you, right? So that's one way to do it. The other thing is, obviously, again, play the, I'll have to get back to you. I'll have to look at my calendar. I'll have to think about it. Simple things like that. They might sit there and go, well, I told you about this a week ago. Well, I'm sorry, I forgot about it. Why don't you send me an email? Now you've given them another direction. Let them do something else where, again, you still now have time to do it. Obviously, if you're on a FaceTime call, a little bit more challenging, because when you're looking off in the distance, he's going to go, well, what the hell are you doing? Are you ignoring me? Who are you talking to over there? And then that's going to start another war. So you don't want to do that stuff when you're on video. But when you're on video, can you turn off your video? Can you go to any of the other techniques? Can you sit there and say, you know what, I really don't have the answer for you. I'm going to have to look it up. I'm going to have to get back to you. I'm going to have to think about it. There are things that you're not going to make a rushed decision on. Do I want to change the parenting schedule from Wednesday to Thursday? Okay, well, that's kind of a simple task. But if it's, hey, I want to go on vacation for a week and it's a month down the road, well, I really have to look at my calendar. Well, I need to look at it right now because I don't have that accessibility at the moment. Again, come up with that kind of excuse to go, wait a minute, this is my life. You don't control my life anymore. Now, don't say this because that's just going to give a rise. But you're thinking to yourself, you don't control my relationship anymore. I'm going to do this on my time. And so my time means that I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to focus. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to figure this out and calm yourself.
I mean, that's really great advice. I mean, and I wish that you're so good. You know what I mean? You could just talk about anything. I love watching you work because I let you talk for me. Because I don't think that I could be calm about my own case. And we've talked about this before, a lot of divorce attorneys, family attorneys, they do use an attorney for their own cases and their own situations because it's really hard not to get involved and to get fired up. And I think that's, some really great advice that you're giving.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So what if your ex is doing crazy things, having affairs, lying, breaking promises, which is always heartbreaking, especially if the promises are made to the children? What do you do in that case?
Well, I think it's different for each scenario. So, in terms of the affairs, it's definitely let it go. It's none of your business. You don't have a moral compass that says you're better than they are because you're not having an affair. The court doesn't care about it. So as much as you want to care about it, the court's not going to have an impact. So if you start raising it as an issue and you start harping on it, the court's going to think that there's something wrong with you, that we don't care. We've already told you this, move on. And at some point it gets annoyance to the court and you don't want the court to side against you. So as much as I'm going to tell you, let it go. I mean, let it go. In terms of lying, again, what are they lying about? Does it really matter? Hey, I told you, 3 times that the child support was on its way, or, you didn't get it, or, hey, look, I told you about this extracurricular activity. Great. Get it in writing. That's why when somebody says something and you say it on the phone, my proper response is always follow it up with an email or text. Hey, we talked today and you discussed the cost of the extracurricular activity for soccer. Guess what? If I didn't have that conversation, I'm going to go, what are you talking about? But now you've set the tone and there's at least a paper trail that says, hey, this existed. They had this conversation. Might not know the full extent of it, but at least I have something to refer back to. So you want to kind of gather that intel. You told me today that you were going to do X, Y, and Z. Why didn't you follow through? Those are all things that you want to be able to document. In terms of breaking promises, obviously, if it's breaking promises to your child, document the crap out of it. Get as much documents as you can. Again, simple things, same way about the lying. Get that intel. You promised Sally that you were going to take her to Six Flags this weekend. Why didn't you do it? And I don't know why your kid is always named Sally, by the way, just saying. But simple fact of the matter is that's what happens. And so now we have something to take in court and go, look, on 10 different occasions, he promised these things to Sally, and guess what? It never happened. So you really want to focus on that, and you want to be able to focus on, the information of how do I present this to the judge? And that's the way you do it. You document it, and at some point we're going to go in front of the judge, and we're going to have something to say. This is the reason why this person is not the best person.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, if there's one thing that I've heard you say over the years, document everything. You even have notebooks that you hand out. So it's very helpful for people that are trying to keep track. And it's a little cumbersome, but you'll be glad that you did it later on, for sure. Now, what if your ex is doing something illegal? In front of your kids, I guess, versus not in front of your kids. I mean, there are situations where you just don't feel comfortable sending your kid with that person because you're not sure about their safety mentally or physically.
And I think, again, I'm going to start with document everything in case you didn't hear that enough. You're going to document everything. So what does that mean? We're getting the proof. So can we go to social media posts that are showing that? Do we have police reports? Do we have emails? What information do we have that we can print out, that we can show to the court? Is there a video? Like, where is this information? Because, you can say he's doing illegal things every day. Okay. So unless it's, hey, he's doing illegal narcotics, how is the court supposed to be able to show that one way or another? Okay, on narcotics, great. Let's go for a drug test, right? He's drinking. Okay, let's go for a drug test. Other than that, okay, give me proof. And that's going to be their answer because there is no other answer. There's nothing else that the court can do. They're going to say, give me the police report, give me the incident report, give me the social media post, give me something other than your word. Because guess what? Your ex is saying, this woman's out of her friggin' mind. And yes, I'm going to have little post-its up here. But the reality is that's exactly what happens is, these things occur on a regular basis. So you really need to document it, and you really need to have documentation that you can send to the court, because without it, it's a he said, she said fest.
Oh, yeah. No, that's absolutely true. Now, this is a point where I like to talk in every interview about how you should use Nicole if you're in the Worcester area. Her and her team are fantastic at what they do. Their strategies are spot on, and they can help you with the steps in which you need to take to get your goals accomplished. And they can be great at listening to you, but also coming up with some strategies. And I mean, so just what is the process though if you do have a problem with your ex doing something illegal or lying, or all these things that you're documenting? Okay, great, I've got the documentation, I'm coming to you. What are we doing next?
Well, it depends on where we are. If there's an open case, then obviously we would just want to go in and tell the judge at the next court date, or maybe enter a temporary order. If there isn't anything, then we're probably going to be seeking some type of modification or contempt, most likely a modification, saying, hey, we need to have a change in circumstances because of something that my ex is doing. So we need to have an underlying complaint, but we bring it up to the court's attention. This is what's going on. All too often we have a pretrial and things happen the day before pretrial, and you're like, oh my God, crisis just burned down. So our pretrial hearing now becomes a temporary order hearing because of what happened in life and where we are at today. All too often, you'll have cases where DCF is called 2 days before a pretrial, and you're like, okay, well, I guess we're going down this road instead. And so that's what we focus on. So it's getting it in front of the judge, getting the judge to hear what is going on. And then as a result of that, how is the judge going to react, and what documentation does the judge believe or not believe?
So what if your ex is using poor judgment and they are bringing different partners around the child every week? Maybe they're drinking, maybe they're using marijuana, maybe, I mean, these are legal things, but maybe they're being excessive, and maybe you don't want your child in a party environment. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they're watching R-rated movies and your child isn't old enough. There's a lot of things that could happen. Bringing them to inappropriate places. There's a lot of things that can go wrong and can influence your child. So what do you think? What can you do?
Well, I think, it's time and place. That's the easy answer. If they're drinking and they're using marijuana and the kid's not around, great. So be it. That's their lifestyle. It's a lifestyle they've chosen. And unfortunately, you've chosen to have a relationship and a child with this person. Not much you can do in those circumstances. Now, when they bring the child in and expose the child to that, that's another huge issue. And what am I going to tell you? Document. Say it again. Document, document, document. So we need to get that documentation. it's those poor judgments that really lead to something that goes, hey, we need to have a change in custody. We need to have a change in the parenting schedule. We need to have supervised parenting time because you're doing stupid things. You don't get to do these things and expose your child to that. Now, something like an R-rated movie, we're just going to put in a temporary order that says no movies that are not rated for that age appropriate child. Same thing with video games, stuff of that nature. But obviously, when we're talking about drinking and we're talking about drugs and we're talking about sex, like those are never age appropriate. So we need to be able to show that this is happening. Now, again, how are we going to get that information? Most likely from Sally, because Sally's going to tell us. So that's going to be the number one issue. But is there anything else that we can pinpoint? Is there something that we know? Like, one time I had somebody that texted their ex and said, made some kind of stupid comment. They're like, yeah, I'm pretty sure he's drinking again because these are the things he says when he's drinking. She called the police, did a wellness check. Sure enough, he was drunk. And the police immediately said, come pick up this child or we're going to call DCF. So there are times that they're stupid enough to give you the ammunition yourself and you're going to document it and you're going to do what you need to do. Sometimes it's just a matter of relying on Sally and going, okay, maybe we need to get a third party involved, a GAL, possibly a probation officer, somebody else that can really go in and figure out what's going on. Obviously, if DCF is involved in your case, you're going to want to call your DCF worker and let them know that, hey, look, I think this is what's going on. Can you talk to Sally? Because now they're an impartial third party talking to Sally and get that information that way. So there's definitely things that we can do. It's just a matter of how severe they're doing it. And again, what they're exposing your child to.
And that's always really sad. That's a sad situation when somebody can't have a child appropriate time. They should know better, but a lot of people don't, and they have addictions and they just can't help themselves. So, I mean, it's really good advice. And how long does it take typically to get something like that added? And is it a really quick temporary order, or what happens with that?
Really depends on the severity of the situation. And it depends on where you guys are in your case. I mean, sometimes it's just a matter of me calling the other attorney and go, this is what happened. Will your client agree not to see the child until we can go into court? And sometimes they say yes, and sometimes they go, no, go away. So again, it really depends on who we're dealing with on the other side. But to the extreme point, when DCF is doing it, we can go into court. We can get a short order notice. So it can be as simple as 10 days. It can be as simple as, same day, depending on the severity of it. Again, what is going on? Now, is that going to happen in your particular case? Probably not. It's definitely something that you need to talk to me about, and we need to do an analysis because you don't want to overreact. And when you're running into court and you're saying this is an ex-parte communication and we need to tell the judge and we need to do this right now, you better have a damn good reason or you're going to lose. So it's really an analysis that you have to do with your attorney.
And this is great advice. And one last note, something we haven't really mentioned, but I know it's an underlying issue. If people love to go to social media and post negative things about what's going on in their life with their ex or court or whatever it is. I mean, I always tell anybody, do not put anything like that up there. If you want to get a job, because I used to have a recruiting company, and just don't do it. You don't want people to know that part of your life, but you have more information on how it can be bad for you in other ways. So I'll let you add that.
It can be very bad, but it can be very good depending on what side you're on. So again, if you're that stupid person that's posting that, I'm going to be the smart person and I'm going to take a screenshot before you get sober and take it down. Or somebody yells at you and goes, what did you do? And then magically it's down the next day. Yeah, but I got it. I got it before it was deleted. So there's definitely things that, you want to be friends with your ex, or even if you can't be, you want your friends to be friends with your ex on social media so that we can get that information because they do stupid things. And again, that's part of the documentation process. So you want to really make sure that you can utilize that whenever you can. And again, if you're on the stupid side of things, don't post anything.
Hey, they call that the stupid tax. You're going to learn your lesson in money because money that you pay out to your ex, because It's not okay. You can't, it's just going to hurt your case in the long run. So I want to thank you. This has been very informative, probably longer than most of our interviews, but I think it's rightfully so, because these are issues that everybody's dealing with. You know, someone knows how to press your buttons and get you going, and then it ends up costing you money later, or maybe even your time with your child. So it's important to know how to control yourself and how to keep things under control for your children's sake.
Absolutely. And I think, again, going back to, yes, we're focusing on the children, but this can be used anywhere in life, anywhere, in anything, even in your jobs. Like, your boss sucks. Great. You hate your job, but utilize these things because they're going to be beneficial to you. Obviously, you have to tweak them appropriately, but they're techniques that I'm hoping that people can use and benefit from.
That's fantastic. And thank you so much again for taking the time and coming on here and helping everybody out with your information. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Have a fantastic weekend. We will see you again next week with an interesting new topic. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.